Hello and good day. So this is Jess, and I am in the process of recording some different slides about cancer and oncology and how we work with that process. Let me share my screen here. So this covers a couple chapters in the book. It covers chapter 51 about breast cancer. And then it also covers, I'm just doing a quick, chapter 15 about cancer. So chapters 15 and 51. So what happens with cancer is it's unproliferate. This is going to be a lot of tongue twisters today, peoples. So it is unproliferated, unstoppable, not stopped, not mitigated, not controlled cell growth. So in a cell cycle, the stem cell starts it, and it begins so that the time that the cell, so cell proliferation originates in the stem cells, and it begins when the stem cell enters the cell cycle. So time from when a cell enters the cell cycle until it divides into two identical cells is called the generation time of the cell. And a mature cell continues to function until it degenerates and dies. So this generation time is from M phase, mitosis phase, to M phase. So there are cells that aren't in the cycle, but they are still capable of division, and that's the G0 phase. So this whole diagram is basically the cell life cycle and metabolic activity and when things happen. Why this is important is depending on where the cells are at in their metabolic activity and their life cycle can highly influence their the treatments that we put together for individualized clients. So just so that you're aware, some of this mitosis pattern, depending upon where the when we do a biopsy of that tumor that we might suspect is malignant or that we know is malignant, depending upon where this is at, we can sometimes develop very targeted therapy to stop mitosis and therefore stop tumor growth. And then we do other interventions to take care of the existing tumor and a variety of other things. So this is the quick patho review that applies to cancer, quick E&P review that applies to cancer. So there is some vocabulary that's associated with cancer. Proliferation is otherwise known as growth patterns. Differentiation is the cell shape and specificity. So cell differentiation is what makes some cells muscle cells and some cells skin cells and some cells nerve cells. So that's differentiation. Proliferation is how they grow and how often they make new cells. And differentiation is what type of cells they become. And neoplasm is a tumor. Neoplasms can be benign, non-cancerous, malignant, cancerous. I had a really hard time remembering the difference between benign and malignant when I was first in nursing school, but malignant is a bigger word and it means bigger problem. Legit, that's how I thought about it. Benign, little word, smaller problems. Malignant, big word, big problems. So the stages of cancer include initiation, where there's a mutation in the cell's genetic structure. There's a variety of different ways that that mutation can happen. There's promotion, which is reversible proliferation of the altered cells. So initiation is when the DNA damage happens. Promotion is when they start to make new cells with this broken DNA or this altered DNA. And then Progression is an increased growth rate of the tumor. It also indicates that there's increased invasiveness, and it indicates that there could be, or there is, a spread of the cancer to a distant site, which is otherwise known as metastasis. Metastasis is when you have cancer from one area that has decided to migrate to a different area and set up camp there as well. Usually using the lymph nodes or the blood or both as transport mechanisms. More on that later. So if we were to visualize the stages of cancer development, this is initiation here. So this first step is initiation, where viruses or hormones or radiation or chemicals or genetic factors, sometimes it's a mystery, alter the DNA in the cell and create a dysfunction with differentiation, how often it multiplies, or differentiation, what type of cell it is, and proliferation, how often it multiplies. And that is that's how we get to cancer. Once this initial little cancer cell decides that it needs to proliferate, then we're in promotion. And then from promotion, usually when we have progression, that's when we don't really see the actual evidence of any clinical disease until they're in progression. So unless they're doing some really strong screenings, and even then, we're catching it at like stage 1 at the very earliest, just so that you're aware. So there's a classification system that we use when it comes to cancer. So we use the anatomic site, and that's the tissue of origin. So and then we use histologic grading, which is analysis of how much the tissue looks like the original. So if the tissue looks a lot like the original, it's going to get a grade 1. If it looks like some sort of weird generic cancer cell, it's going to get a grade 4. So, and then there's staging, and that's how much the disease has spread. So it has 5 levels from, and you heard me refer to stage 1 when I was talking about metastasis and how things travel to different places. Stage 1 is in situ, so it's confined to a space. Stage 4 is metastasis. There is a stage 0 where we have all of the it's kind of like, it's like a hurricane warning, because there's 5 stages of hurricanes too. So stage 0 is we have all of the right conditions for hurricane, but we don't have it yet. All the way up to metastasis, which was a Cat 5 hurricane, if you needed to relate it to the weather or something a little bit more a part of your understanding for stuff. So metastasis, the most common sites that cancer from one original area will set up camp in a new place. And these are the most common places that it sets up camp. It likes to set up camp in bones, brains, lungs, liver, the adrenal glands. And I know that the slide has that it has bones here, like kind of in the femur, and then it has bone in the spine, but it can also set up bone cancer here in the cervical spine or in the thoracic spine as well. And so depending upon where this metastasis is occurring, it can really impact pain. If it's really high up in the cervical spine, it can impact mobility. It can impact cranial nerves. It can impact, it can be really painful. It can impact blood flow, and it will impact nerve function as well. So to be metastatic, the tumor cells must detach from the primary tumor and enter the circulation. So it can either enter the actual circulation, like the blood circulation, or it can travel via the lymph, just to let you know. And then it moves to different organs. You'll see as this figure 15.4 progresses that we have this initial tumor. These initial tumors are really, that's the blue part. The initial tumors are actually the blue part here. Come on, pen. I want to draw with you. Here we go. The blue part here. Oh no. And then what will happen is tumors are really good about building their own blood supply. So that's what's happening here. And then because it's built its own blood supply, it's that much easier for some of these little blue parts of the tumor to enter the blood vessels and then get into the circulation. Angiogenesis can also include lymphatic development as well. And so when it's, they will also develop their own little lymph channels, and it can travel via the lymph as well. Sneaky stuff. So TNM is a really commonly used tumor classification system. So the T is the tumor size and the invasiveness. The N is lymph node, and the M is metastasis. Just so that you're aware, you may see if you're doing work with people who are getting cancer treatment, they may have TNM scores, as well as, I'm just gonna bounce back here to, oh, where did it go? I went too far. A classification. So they have a classification of the cancer with histologic grading and staging, and they'll have a TNM. There's a lot of descriptives that come along with cancer. So I'm going to end here, and I'm going to start a new YouTube bit here in just a moment. So I will see you in the next chapter.